Hello, everyone, and welcome to Wisdom Seeker Live podcast. Glad to be back with you. Been off a little bit, and because of the way the holidays hit and all that went on during that, and as well as some work-related demands. But very happy to be back and looking forward to a time of sharing and seeking wisdom together. And as always, I like to remind everyone the way that we see wisdom in terms of the podcast, and it's a 3-step process or journey. And the first step in that process is to gain knowledge, facts, figures, information, pick that up formally, informally, however. In fact, I approach each day with the idea that I'd like to pick up something new, learn something new every day. So that's the first step in that process, is gaining knowledge. And then second step, and by the way, there is a comment that goes around that knowledge is power. And here on Wisdom Seeker Live podcast, we believe that the power is not in the knowledge, but rather in gaining wisdom. And so the next step in that process is to gain understanding. And understanding is about taking the knowledge we have learned and begin to do something with it, begin to apply it, find solutions, make choices, figure out things in our lives and so on, and to begin to gain experience with the knowledge that we have and begin to use it, which is great. And it's second step in this journey. And then the third and most important step is when we step into wisdom. And wisdom is to take our knowledge and our understanding and begin to see it from a much bigger perspective, to begin to see our world and our lives in light of ourself, which is inwardly and outwardly, but not just ourselves, but how the our choices and our direction influences and affects other people. Seeing things from that much bigger perspective, and for those of us that are of a spiritual bent, to be able to, as we put it, see things through God's eyes. And so that's what wisdom is about for our podcast. And we hope that you will join us, that you will seek wisdom together with us, share wisdom with us. And as you do, let us know where you're joining from. And feel free, of course, to ask questions, make comments. And I'm really excited today to have a new friend that I've connected with on LinkedIn. We connected pretty quickly as soon as we had the opportunity. His name's Paul Daniels, and I've enjoyed watching Paul's content on LinkedIn, and we've commented and gone back and forth. And so without any further ado, let me bring Paul on board and let's start a conversation. Paul, welcome to Wisdom Seeker Live podcast.
Kevin, thanks very much. I can't think of a better way to get the week started than seeking knowledge, understanding, and applied wisdom. Well done.
Very good. Well, tell the audience a bit about yourself and your journey to this point, and your wisdom that you've gained, or how you've gone about gaining wisdom.
You know, I think you've nailed the process. So I won't go step by step in the knowledge that I gained, how I gained understanding by acting on that knowledge, and then ultimately applying that stuff for wisdom. As a kid, I was born, and we moved a lot. As a kid, I was born. Of course, I was born as a kid.
Born at a very early age, were you?
Yeah, I was indeed. Yeah, I'm a professional speaker. You can tell. We moved a lot, and I was fascinated with a lot of things at a very, very young age. What happened when I hit the school age, and throughout school, I was labeled as slow, lazy, and dumb. a daydreamer, an outsider. And that followed me through school, through primary and high school, into college, postgraduate, even into my professional career.
Oh, wow.
Started my first company in my late 20s, ran that for a couple of years, sold that, moved into corporate America, climbed the ladder several times through corporate America, and the results were good. Some say they were extraordinary. And yet, sitting as a division president or sitting in the boardroom with other executives, the comments were, "We love the results, we just don't get you." At age 40, I was diagnosed with dyslexia. And the light bulb came on. And I realized that the way I see the world is different. So some people call dyslexia, a disability. It's not. It's actually a learning difference. Only about 10 to 15% of the population are born with dyslexia. But between 20 and 30% of entrepreneurs and nearly 40% of self-made millionaires are dyslexic.
Wow.
In fact, NASA actively recruits people with dyslexia. About 50% of NASA is dyslexic. And some have called dyslexia the MIT disease.
Okay.
So it's not a disease, it's a learning difference. When I learned that I had dyslexia, as I said, the light bulb came on, and I started to realize I have a language now to explain how I come up with ideas and solutions and processes and procedures and so on. Fast forward to today, some, many decades later, but it's none of your business how many, past 40. I now have translated the super skills that are found within dyslexic innovators, and I teach people, especially leaders, how to learn and apply these super skills to strengthen their business, to make more connections with their people and their clients and their environment, their community, and to drive their business to places they never thought were possible. So after 40 plus years, 31 industries, 27 clients, have generated about $2.5 billion in new annual revenue, not as a brag, but just as a reference point. So that's a little bit about me. You can put a bunch of other labels on me if you like. I'm a professional speaker. I'm a board advisor. I run an advisory firm. I'm the chief revenue officer for a software company, and I'm writing my second book. And I don't sleep much.
Yeah, that doesn't sound like that's a high priority. And
that's right.
And
right. I'll sleep when I'm in heaven.
There you go. There you go. Well, let me go ahead and welcome on board this morning or today, depending on where you're joining from. Jeremy is one of our regulars, as is Lee. And then Matthew has become a regular. He's from Ireland, and Karen as well. And so glad to have all of you, and look forward to hearing from you as we go along. One of the things that I noticed that you had mentioned in your profile that you were dyslexic. And I think that it's really interesting that rather than being a disability, it not that I know of, I'm not dyslexic, but I would think it forces you to not be on autopilot so much. You have to be more cognizant of what you're doing and what you're thinking and reading. And to me, that is something that I believe we could all benefit from in some regard. And by the way, welcome, Sharon. Glad to have you with us. And so, Paul, tell us a little more about how that dyslexia affects your day-to-day function and how you approach it.
Sure. Well, I'll take it from a historical perspective and then apply it to my own life.
Okay.
If you look at innovation throughout history, you may not know it, but dyslexics are there. These people raised the bar for their particular profession, and in some cases created new industries. People like Edison, Henry Ford, Agatha Christie, JFK, Aaron Brockovich, Barbara Corcoran, from the Shark Tank,
Mm.
Richard Branson, Muhammad Ali, Kobe Bryant, the list goes on. All of them innovators, all dyslexic. So when I found out that I was dyslexic, I dug into it, and studies have been done, especially more recently in the last several decades, that identify there are specific skills that our brain is wired toward. So our brain is wired in a specific way. In fact, medicine has proven that we have a broader peripheral vision than most. So we actually see a little bit more in the periphery, and what we see in the periphery is more highlighted and more detailed. Thus, the name of the model and the business. Peripheral thinking is the model of some 19 skills across 6 or 7 categories, and Peripheral Thinkers is the advisory firm. So the way that I've used that is, at first, was I'm just using what I'm naturally gifted at, God-given gift of seeing things that most people miss, of connecting the dots between seemingly unrelated forms of information and data, seeing patterns before most do, a la that's why NASA hires so many people with dyslexia, because we're great pattern seers. And then as I learned more about that, I thought, gosh, that is why I could explain it to people as I'm helping them solve their challenges and reach their goals. Now I can teach them how to do that. I, instead of being a fisherman, I'm a fisher of men, I guess, to throw in some biblical reference. But at the same time, I'm teaching those that are interested how to think this way.
Okay.
Because if you look at all of those people that I just mentioned, yes, they've all met challenges, but they've all risen beyond those challenges. They found the knowledge, which is sometimes innate. They've captured more content and have applied that and gained a higher understanding very quickly. And now, using their wisdom, they grow and apply that wisdom to make major changes in their own life, in their business, in the industry, and in the world.
Explain to people what dyslexia is by definition, if you don't mind.
Dyslexia is a learning difference. So the brain is wired to learn differently. There are various forms of dyslexia, in that dyslexic, some people transpose letters. They may transpose, or they may flip letters. For me, my dyslexia, as I'm reading, will grab a word from a lower part of the page and bring it and insert it into a sentence, making the sentence not understandable. But dyslexia is, on the positive side, is neuro, and it's neurodiverse, meaning that the neurons in our brain are using multiple parts of the brain at the same time when reading, learning, applying, doing things. So it's often that dyslexia is accompanied by things like ADHD, there's dysgraphia, dyspraxia, other things. So it's a neurodiversity. And if you look at, for instance, the World Economic Forum, they do a study every 2 years called the Future of Work. And they describe the skills that are important for companies to achieve great things, to succeed in the year, depending on when it started, 2020, 2025, 2030, and beyond. And other studies have taken those dyslexic super skills and matrix them to the top skills needed by the World Economic Forum. And at 80% of the top 10 are found innately within dyslexics. But we can't birth enough dyslexics.
Interesting, because, and I have now learned some new insights, because my limited understanding of dyslexia was when reversing words. Seeing them backwards was kind of my limited understanding. So I have now grown in my understanding that it's much broader than that. And as a former educator, things like that fascinate me because I believe that part of our problem with our education system is we primarily teach to one type of learning, and
Right.
and that the problem is that leaves a lot of people out that learn differently or have a different dominant learning style. So pretty fascinating.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
well, and I also identify, especially because you mentioned ADD, ADHD. Had I been born at a different time, I probably would have been identified as ADD or ADHD. In fact, in our family, we joke, we call it OSTD, oh shiny thing disorder, and uh, and it's not, rather than being a negative. It, I mean, it can be, but it can be a very positive. And I appreciate that you have turned something that others would possibly say that's a negative or a disability, and found the almost super ability related to it. That's great. Um,
Thank
Tell
you.
us a little more about some of your journey along the way, and especially, one of the things about wisdom is that it's best when we seek it out. Unfortunately, in our cultures, we have exchanged the seeking of knowledge over the seeking of wisdom. And uh, I think part of the reason I do this podcast is to shift, hopefully help shift some of that. So tell us a bit about your journey and how it's impacted your seeking wisdom, because obviously you actively seek it out, which is great.
Yeah, thank you for that. And as I thank you for that compliment. I appreciate it. I was going to go to a different rabbit hole, but I think you've got a good one to start with. The journey, as you can imagine, moving around was hard.
Mm,
We moved a lot. I'm in the 27th house I've lived in since I was born. The
wow.
first 25 I did before I was 30, and being the new kid in school was, it was interesting. So the girls were like, "Ooh, new boy in school." The guys were like, "Ah, new boy in school."
Yeah.
So, during the day, someone might flirt with me during break or after school. I'm getting beat up.
Yeah.
So then add on that the fact that I'm struggling reading and I'm not diagnosed. So I'm doing everything that I can to gain the knowledge
Yes.
that is coming at me, right? So I'm trying to gain this knowledge, and one of the things that dyslexics are very good at is taking cues and pulling in all forms of information in order to make sense of what we're seeing. Now, you fast forward that, and as you start to make sense, you now have different paradigms and different ways of seeing the world that start to create a matrix, a lot of analogies. One of the traits of dyslexics, when we see or hear something, it always reminds us of something else.
Mm,
So we're often and frequently making the connection. Now, making that connection intellectually is one thing. It's the application. And that's where we're very good at, because, and anyone can be. I don't want this to be dyslexics only. So
right.
peripheral thinkers, anyone can take that knowledge and apply it. That is the key. I can read all the books in the world. No, I can't, but many people can read all the books. Don't have enough time in my life to read all the
Yeah.
books, but you can read them. It's the application of
Mm-hmm.
what you've learned. And my tip is, go ahead and do the workbook, but take that knowledge and apply it in other ways,
Mm-hmm.
in other situations, in other environments, so that you gain a deeper understanding of what that knowledge brings.
Mm,
So if you look at, for instance, Richard Branson, right? Richard Branson left school at 16. He
mm,
dropped out, and he started a magazine, of all things. But but a magazine, what does a magazine have to do with a recording studio and company? Not much. In a recording studio, what does that have to do with an airline or a cruise ship or a health club or health insurance or a bank or an investment? Right? I think he's got 80 companies. I don't quote me on that, but I think it's 60 to 80 companies in 35 countries. What he's doing is he's taking this knowledge, the knowledge, applying that knowledge and getting understanding, and then applying the understanding to gain the wisdom, because he's cross-pollinating ideas, processes, procedures, and so on across that. That's been my journey. And that's what's led me to serving clients in 30 plus industries and a lot of countries, because I can see the similarities and the beauty of their uniqueness in that culture, so that I can take the culture, the knowledge, the wisdom, understanding from these various places, and then apply it in a new way in the United States in home building, for instance.
Very good.
Did that track with your question?
Yeah. Oh, yes.
Okay.
It again. Now you're making me question for myself if I have any dyslexic tendencies, because of what you're describing is some things that I experience, but I don't have a way of explaining those experiences. And so
Right.
we've got
But you
a
can apply
question.
them, right?
Pardon?
But you can apply them as you've got to. There's something in you, and it's like, oh gosh, I think I can do this. I know how. I believe there may be a better way to do this, because I've seen it done here, and I can apply the premise, the theory, the application in this totally different environment.
Yeah, the closest I come to it is, I call it process thinking. I can watch and see processes all over and interrelate them, and it's pretty interesting. So you have me wondering myself. So you've opened my eyes in new ways. We have a question from one of the audience. Lee asked a question: is it lifelong, or does one naturally grow out of it? I'm assuming that his reference is to the dyslexia.
Yeah. The answer is, it is lifelong. It's the way dyslexics are born. It is a it's the way our brains are wired. And there's really no rewiring of the brain that will teach me how to read better. But I wouldn't change it now for anything, because I see a much broader world. I see a much more connected world. I see more opportunities than obstacles, and more choices than challenges. And my prayer is that I can show more and more people about this, because it is outside of my faith. It is my hope, right? There isn't a challenge that I don't look at and go, okay, I may not know the answer right now, but I can find it. And I know how to find that, because I'm going to use peripheral thinking is the translation of these super skills for neurotypical individuals. So translating what a dyslexic or neurodiverse person just thinks automatically into something that can be learned and applied for neurodiverse or neurotypical people. So no, I don't grow out of it, and I pray I never do, because I love what I see.
Rather than seeing it as an obstacle or a disability, you see it as an opportunity, or like you said, a super skill. And I appreciate that. I think that one of the keys for us is to be sure and look at our uniqueness that we each have in some form or fashion, rather than seeing it as, well, I'm different from everybody else or whatever. See it as it's a unique quality that can be developed and grown and applied. And it's, although it's unique, doesn't make us
strange,
it makes us complementary to other people.
100%. I'm so glad you used that word complementary, because it requires doesn't require, as a dyslexic or neurodiverse person, my goal is to show more neurotypical individuals how to think like this dyslexic disruptors and innovators, so that they can see what I see, which is a world filled with more answers than questions. So I'm never at a loss, scratching my head. What are we going to do next? How do we know? It's okay. Which of these options, from the jungles of Nigeria to one of my favorite places on earth, southwestern Ireland? Hello, Matthew. Gaurav Mahagat, I'm glad you're here. So just taking those and applying them. I love it.
Yeah.
I'll just stop there.
Well, and what is a great thing, and I think this is part of what we all need to be doing, is that you're embracing the unique design that you are given by our Creator, and not looking at it again as a problem, but rather an opportunity. And it makes a massive difference in how we look at things. And welcome, Jane. Glad to have you here. Jane's joined us. Jane's a semi-regular as well. And so you've mentioned spiritual things. So tell us a bit about your spiritual journey. I identify with it and know how important that is to many of us.
Yeah. So born and raised in just about every church you can imagine, because we moved around, and I'm really grateful that my parents took us to see many things and to experience different forms of worship and learning. I accepted the Lord at 18, and it was a true faithful acceptance of Him. I didn't have instructors, or I didn't have a way to be discipled at the time, and so it took several years before I came to fully understand the decision that I'd made. And at 30, I came to know the Lord and walk with Him, and have just been very blessed to have Him save me and to live the life that He's given me. Everything comes with challenges, right? So even being dyslexic, and I talk about how wonderful this is, it's still a challenge for me to read. So, but He knows me. He knit me in my mother's womb. He knew exactly where I would be today, and following Him is the light unto my feet. Without that, but I could just throw a bunch of scripture out there. I don't want to sound like I'm just coming off the cuff with a bunch of references, but I'm nothing. You know, I've been crucified with Christ, and I no longer live. It's this life I live in the body. I live by faith in the one who loved me and saved me, gave Himself for me. So Galatians 2:20 is my life verse, and it's not always welcome in environments,
right?
And that's okay, because my goal is to live my faith, to share it where people are interested in hearing about it, but more importantly, I answer to one.
I understand, identify completely, and appreciate it. It is the core of my life, and I believe that ultimately it is a key to truly gaining wisdom. We can potentially gain wisdom without having a spiritual journey, but to truly be wise, I think we need that as well. It's all part of our makeup. I mean, we have a body and a soul and a spirit. And if we're going to be healthy and live well, we've got to nurture all three parts of us. Welcome, Johan from Cape Town, South Africa. Glad to have you with us. Johan is a friend of a friend and has become a little bit of a regular here on Wisdom Seeker. So glad to
Right
have
on.
you. Jeremy makes a comment that is interesting. Love to get your response to it. He says, some interpret differently from our observations. However, it's when we question our observations that leads us into other productive thinking methods that assist us in finding solutions. Thoughts on that one?
100%. It's and I'll jump off of that a little bit by defining what I believe is questioning. I'm not questioning whether I'm smart or whether I understood something properly. I'm questioning in order to gain more knowledge and understanding, which in turn makes me wiser by questioning those paradigms that I live by. It should be one of the core of any leader's arsenal of skills. Questioning self, questioning the understanding. And by doing that, you open yourself up to more insights from other places, from other people in other industries. So curiosity and questioning are key. The killers of business are, in my opinion, are two things. One is conventional wisdom, and the second one is industry best practices. So let me explain. So conventional wisdom, it's the stuff that we accept as is, right? But how often have we been in situations where the situation really isn't as we see it or we understand it, because we're not walking that mile in someone else's shoes. We're not seeking to understand before seeking to be understood. The industry best practices are great, and they're often defined by that industry's leaders and subject matter experts. But without a broad set of experiences, that advice may be from narrow perspectives. And those narrow perspectives are meant to give some guidelines, but it also can bring walls and rails up that you can't get out of if you continue to follow them, right? So by looking outside, you're able to see the world more fully. And that's part of being curious and questioning, interpreting what you're seeing, and then a whole bunch of other of those 19, 20 skills across the peripheral thinking or the dyslexic disruptors thinking process.
So by its very nature, it keeps us from becoming too narrowly focused or too set to accept what's always been.
Yes. So for those that are watching or listening, look, believe me that right now you can access everything you need to achieve anything you can imagine. And if you're a follower or believer, that imagine is something that's placed in your heart. This is what I'm here to do. So whatever I imagine is to reach 100,000 business leaders with at least one peripheral thinking skill by the end of 2025. And I started that this time last year. And 1 million business leaders by the end of 2030. Those are big goals.
Very big.
Right. And so just putting those out there doesn't mean I will reach them, but without putting them out there, I'm not stretched to look beyond what their traditional approaches would be, like going on podcasts or, professional speaking in front of larger audiences and the like. So this is an opportunity to see what other things, what other channels, what other ways that I can communicate with people to help them achieve what they're looking to achieve. So I think I've gone a little off on a tangent there, but I hope that it lands somewhere within the question and the comment.
No, that's great. The goal here is that we share our wisdom with each other, because wisdom, sometimes it has to be the hard way and the painful way, but sometimes it can be gained by simply being with other people that have gained wisdom as well. Want to go in a little different direction, because again, it's really interesting to me, because I identify with so much of what you're talking about. And that is, it is among some groups, especially academics, that the way that we become smart, don't like the word smart because of the connotations that go with it, or
Right.
become learned, is through the how many books we read. Now, I have to ask, for you as a dyslexic and all, are you one that consumes lots and lots of books?
I don't consume a lot of books. I'm at a reading level, grade 11 in the U.S. That's where I am. And I work at it. The knowledge I gain, the understanding that I capture, the wisdom that I try to apply comes from everything. So yes, I do love books, and I do some audio books, though strangely enough, I'm not an auditory learner. I'm an aesthetic learner, and a visual learner.
Mm-hmm.
So pictures and drawings and diagrams and the like, yeah, makes perfect sense to me. So yes, and for me, writing another book is it uses a lot of different tools. I'll just put it that way. So I use a tool called Otter to just talk things out and create that. So again, I'm not sure that I answered the question specifically.
Well, you did for me, because again, I am very capable of reading. It's not a lack of processing words and things like that, but by many standards, I would be considered a slow reader. And in part, it's because I don't scan. I have to read in depth as I read, and I am trying to understand each of what I read. Now, as we're talking with you, I'm beginning to think there's some neurological components involved that may be affecting it. And, it's, again, I can understand a great deal. I can read a great deal, but I have come to find that I can gain that knowledge and understanding through other means that are more efficient and effective for me than to sit down and read a book. And so I had to ask.
I'm glad you asked. I'm a visual learner. I rebuilt my first engine with a shop manual and a bunch of YouTube videos. And the YouTube videos were much more helpful.
Yes.
But I used the shop manual to take, the word or the phrase that they're using to find, what it was in relation to the rest of the vehicle, or in this case, to the engine and drivetrain. Okay.
Well, again, the similarities that we share is quite remarkable. You're helping me put some things in context, which is great. So to the audience here, Johan makes a comment, and again, I think it's a very appropriate comment given the topic. And he says, we have all at some point have had our perspectives change, what we believe change because of life experience. And so, again, your thoughts on that one, Paul?
Yes. My thought is a word of encouragement. Go do more. get more life experiences. It's what I teach the executives that are part of a program that I lead. We go and do things that they typically wouldn't do. For instance, taking a group of CEOs to a donut shop at 3 a.m. Right? So they think we're going to go and kind of observe. No, I've got it arranged, and we're going to work. We're going to put our hands on this, and we're going to create things. And as we finish, we'll work for a few hours, and we'll grab a dozen donuts and a jug of coffee and go sit on the curb and ask questions. So what did you learn? Well, I learned, I'm not really good. Okay, so we get past all the joking stuff, and then eventually we'll get to the point where I said, no, what did you learn that you can apply to your business? Well, I run a home building business. So really this isn't, there are materials that makes sense. And then the CEO of a bank or a financial fintech software company will say, no, Jane, you run a great home building business. Did you see how they managed the customers that came in? What if there was a way for you to apply that approach to your home building? And then someone else will jump in and say, oh, Joe, you're at the bank. Did you see how they were able to process through a number of people relatively quickly, but how many are return loyal customers? They know them by name and things. Are you applying that? And pretty soon I'm eating all the donuts and drinking the coffee, and they're doing the connecting in these life experiences. A single life experience at a donut place then becomes a community experience, and they begin to teach each other the peripheral thinking skills and bring those up. It's the experiences that drive the insight, the knowledge. When you then take that knowledge that you've experienced from wherever, Home Depot this weekend, Joe's coffee shop around the corner, going to Fiji, whatever it is, and break that down into elements, you start to gain a deeper knowledge that can then be applied to increase your understanding of how this can be used, which drives wisdom and fills what I call the peripheral resource library. I now have a very robust set of experiences that have been turned into understanding and wisdom that I can pull from at any time in my life, and I have. And that's what's helped me drive, the results that you heard me say earlier.
Well, and I think it's interesting. I like the concept of you say that dyslexics tend to have a greater peripheral vision. So identifying a physical example, but it's much more than that. It is a peripheral vision or a peripheral view of life. And that the result is that you begin to see that as a dyslexic, you see things that others don't and connect them with the things that they see. And I get that completely.
100%. And Kevin, if I could take 4 minutes, I'll take everyone on a journey.
Okay.
To learn something. Is that okay?
Sure.
Okay, we didn't plan this out. So, all right. So we're going to go on an unconventional journey. And all you need to pack for this journey is your imagination and your willingness to follow my lead. Okay. All right. So imagine you're standing in a mountain field, a big mountain field, and it's covered with wildflowers. And it's early summer. The flowers are blooming. The air is crisp and cool. The sun is warm on your face, all of that, right? So as you look out onto this mountain field, right in front of you is the biggest challenge you've ever faced. Biggest challenge. And it's like rising like a monolith out of the flowers. Okay? You got that image?
Yeah.
All right, now take your hand and put it in front of your face. Don't cover your eyes completely, but just do it so you can't see what's in front of you. This is where you follow my lead.
Okay.
Everybody doing it? Okay, great. So now, where you can't see what's directly in front of you, what can you see? Well, you can move your eyes up, down, to the left, to the right. In fact, right where you are, Move your eyes around and find something that you've not noticed before, something new. Doesn't matter if you've been in that same place a million times, you can find something. Did you find something?
Yeah.
Okay, great. You can take your hands down. You may not be able to make out all the details of what you saw. You can acknowledge it's there. That's peripheral vision.
Right.
For me, it was the light coming through a slat in my blinds.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, look at the object that you noticed in your peripheral vision. What was, in the vision is a little clearer because I'm looking at the details of it. I can see that. That's peripheral awareness.
Okay.
Okay, so we're standing in that mountain field and we're looking at that monolith. This time, we're going to just imagine we move to the right, say 100 yards. What does this new vantage point of that obstacle uncover? Well, you get a little bit more detail, perhaps its depth, and you can continue to move around that obstacle in a circle, right? A 360-degree review in business, right? However, your view of that obstacle is still from your perspective, perhaps even filtered through your experiences, or you took your team on that and it's the same thing. It's from their perspective and their experiences. So from that position, some 100 yards to the right, instead of looking at your obstacle, this time, look around. Now what can you see? Well, you see other objects and perhaps different terrain, and there are other people there. But these people, they're not looking at your challenge. They've got their own challenges. They got their own goals. They have their own experiences. They have their own processes, the way they achieve things, the way they overcome challenges, the failures that they've had. These people's experiences may be just what you need to see your obstacle from a new perspective, using a new reference. So in that journey, we talk about peripheral vision, peripheral awareness, peripheral thinking happens out there. And the skill that you just experienced is called interpreting.
Okay.
Interpreting is a skill that allows you to take that perspective, those lessons, those proven solutions from other industries, other people, other experiences, and break them down into elements and then reassemble them in unique ways to address your challenge or to set a bigger goal and achieve even more. That's peripheral thinking and one quick skill.
Wow. Very good. And what comes to my mind when you shared that is I think of common concept that we talk about a lot is getting out of our comfort zone. And I think part of our comfort zone may be that restricted view, that not seeing the periphery and not taking that into account because, again, we are so focused on what we're doing and what we've been doing. And at the moment, even if it's not ideal, it is working somehow.
Right.
And
conventional wisdom. Right.
Yeah. And so we tend to get comfortable or even feel safe in that spot. And what you're talking about forces us to see outside of that comfort zone.
To go outside of that comfort zone. So we talked imaginatively, and we said, so imagine you look the other way. Now I'm saying, now that you know what's there or what could be there, go and take that peripheral thinking mind with you as you go to Fred's coffee shop that's around the corner, or you're in Fiji or wherever, because the peripheral experiences are everywhere. The knowledge is everywhere. The elements to your solution are everywhere. When JFK said we're going to put a person on the moon by the end of the decade, conventional wisdom, I don't know, it lost all consciousness and fell in the corner. And peripheral thinking said, all right, Let's go.
Yeah.
And that's what NASA did. NASA cast this broad net, asking every industry around the world, hey, we'll take anything you've got so that we can have as much content as possible to create as many things as possible. Literally weave together technology and fabric and materials, process, procedures, and the like.
Right.
And then, I think it was July 16th, 1969, there's a person on the moon.
Yeah.
And that's because of all the input. When you do that, then the output is exponential. We have solar panels because of the space program. We've got water filters. We have running shoes. That all of that is byproducts of peripheral thinking.
There you go. Jane has a comment. I'm curious. I suspect I know how you'll respond to this. I always say that everyone, especially in the U.S., should leave this country for a year or two to gain a more global perspective. Your thoughts?
Nail, head, 100%, boom. Absolutely. And I've really been fortunate. I'm blessed to have been able to see a lot of the world, and there is rarely even a time that I was in Nashville this week that I don't learn something by just being more aware. There's a gentleman at my local Home Depot. His name's Mike. Mike is a former IBM executive, and he works at Home Depot to pay for his trips to Scotland to play golf every year, right? But I'll go every Saturday just to talk with Mike. Yeah, I might buy a few things. Okay, so I always buy something. Okay, I'm confessing I have an addiction to tools and things like that. But it's everywhere. As far as getting outside of the U.S., absolutely. And when you go looking to understand that culture and the people. And if you want a great place to go, I highly recommend Ireland because they're some of the nicest people, and it's an easy place to go, and the culture is rich. In fact, I love it so much. I'm looking for a home in County Kerry as we speak, because I would love to retire there whenever that time comes. And there's so much that I want to do there. But go anywhere. I mean, Canada's not far. Mexico's not far. Just go. Lord will protect you. Put a hedge of protection around you and go experience not the tourism, but the local people.
The culture, what is the real, not the contrived. Yeah.
Absolutely. Go where the others aren't going.
Well, one of the things that I try to encourage people, and I think this is part of the process of gaining wisdom, is to stop living in what I call autopilot. You get up in the morning, you do this, you go to the next step, you do that, and you go throughout your day and so on. And which is, structure and routine are helpful. But sometimes I think we get to a point that we live in our structure and routine and don't really live and experience the life that is around that structure and routine. And as someone that is dyslexic, I'm not sure that I think part of the value of the dyslexia is it doesn't allow you to get too comfortable in routine. Thoughts on that?
Certainly, there are pros and cons certainly for that. So for dyslexic, ADHD, neurodiverse, having structure is good. It's helpful in completing tasks. Having the freedom to explore and learn is the fuel that makes us unique. In fact, it's not just dyslexics. Anyone, if you can break a pattern, that means you have more bandwidth to learn a new pattern or a thought or an experience. And so, yes, absolutely, follow the routines that work for you. I have a morning routine, And when I don't do it, it's not quite the same start to the day for me. But I also build in margin in my day and my week for thinking. And sometimes that thinking is just hopping in my old, farm pickup truck and and going to Home Depot, or just driving around and seeing new things that are just within a few miles of the home. So you don't have to go far. But if you can't expand your experiences and your understanding, your knowledge, then you're on the path that you're going to be on sort of forever. There are moments, right, for those of us that are believers, when the Holy Spirit speaks and you go, oh, and it's just this big aha moment where all of a sudden the blinders come off and you finally see what the Spirit wants you to see. And it immediately transcends steps of practice, and it's just an epiphany.
Right.
Take that.
You have to be willing to respond rather than dismiss.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. And it's a gift. Use it. It may be a difficult gift to take, but it's there for our good. And for those that aren't believers, there are moments when, given the opportunity, you have enough mental space to experience a server at a restaurant and say, that was really great service. Why was that such a memorable moment? What made that unique or special? You can break those down into elements, add those to your peripheral resource library. And when you're trying to create a memorable moment for your clients, for your employees, for whatever, your family, you use that experience as a template along with other experiences that you've had, and off you go.
Got it. Again, see, it's interesting culturally, having challenges like dyslexia, other things that cause us not to fit the norms or to be looked at as peculiar or different, can create a challenge. And one of my goals is to help people get to a point where they become comfortable, they become convicted, if you will, of our value. Because I believe we live in a world where most people don't accept their value because they're looking for the value to come from the wrong places. And in fact, I'm working on a quote book. Hopefully this year may be the year that I can finally get that out there. But one of my favorite quotes that I share, and these are my quotes, by the way, is that we have great value that is given us by our Creator, and we don't earn it, so we can't lose it. Others don't give it to us, so they can't take it away. And the one that gives it to us will never take it away. So as someone that has not fit the norm as a result of your dyslexia, tell us about your view of your value as a person.
Peripheral thinker.
Peripheral
Yeah.
thinker.
Yep. Well, I was fearfully and wonderfully made. He knew me when he knit me in my mother's womb. And early, I wish I hadn't had this because it was difficult. And it was undiagnosed. There's lots of experiences now, there are lots of resources now that can help to break through those barriers that are called our education system. But the value that I have, as you mentioned, is something that really was knit in the way that my brain works. I can't change that. I don't want to change that.
Mm.
And though others have made fun of it, have labeled me an outsider, have kicked me out of companies, even though I'd made them $500 million in 6 months because they didn't understand. They can't take away which I see, and the process that my brain goes through in order to help them achieve what they want or want to achieve. The most important thing is that because of that, I want to strengthen that value to be of service to other people. And that's why I started Peripheral Thinking. I could just continue to consult organizations and tell them what to do. But I want to teach them how to fish. I want to show them that it's not just because I'm dyslexic. Anyone can learn these skills. Anyone can have this value if they're willing to break away from some of the conventional thinking and just learn it and then apply it and test it for yourself. See if it works. If it doesn't work, okay, it was an experience and you can continue to go down the path that you were on. But the value I have can't be taken away. It's been given. The person who gave it to me, the God that gave it to me, will never take it away. And I believe he wants me to use it in service of others.
Very good.
And so I will until I stop breathing.
Very good. Yes, we've got to come to a point where we aren't in question of our value, because there is no question. Once we've settled that, life takes on a different perspective completely. So,
Indeed.
Well, thank you for your time, Paul. I really appreciate it. And I'm hoping that there are those that are going to identify and say, my journey has been similar, or now I have a better understanding of my journey and how I can gain some wisdom and insight into it. And so thank you for that. Maybe I'm thinking there might be a follow-up visit, if it's okay with you to consider, as explore again peripheral thinking. And because I think it's got value. Plus, I think there are people that identify, and it will help them feel a part. And so,
however I can be of service, Kevin, I'm here for you anytime.
Thank you very much. Well, Karen, I hope you do get to visit Ireland. Karen's ready to go. She said that she'd love to visit Ireland. Thanks, everyone, for being here today that have joined us live. Those that will see the recording, I hope that you will find value and that you'll make comments, questions. And like I said, Paul, I hope that maybe we can do a follow-up visit, and because you offer some unique perspective on gaining wisdom, and the wisdom you've gained through your journey is quite insightful. I know it has been for me, especially today. So thank you. Everyone, we'll see you next Monday, 8:00 a.m. Eastern, and we will get word out on the topic. Thanks for joining us. God bless, and have an amazing week, everyone. Bye now.